Okay, I'm going to show you how to do the epoxy method of glitter on this cup here. You guys have to ignore my messy garage. That's where I work and I have to share it with my husband and his tools. So I'm gonna take and mix up, I've got 10 milliliters total of epoxy here. It's 5 of each part, and that's honestly probably too much. I'm gonna do 2 cups. If I'm just doing 1 cup, I'm gonna mix up like 5 milliliters total. You can mix this fast. Bubbles really don't matter. Just make sure it's mixed. It's going on so thin that the bubbles are not gonna stay on your cup. I've got my cup here on an arm for my turner. That way it's easy for me to hold. So I'm just gonna scrape the sides, mix this really well. Obviously you're gonna wear gloves because you're gonna be touching the epoxy. And I am going to be putting this glitter, it's a Recollection Seafoam, on this cup. My paint is not perfect on this cup. I just needed to rough it up and give it some color. For a color cup, that's not going to matter. If I was doing white glitter or a really pale, like a pale pink, like this one here, then it would definitely matter. And you need to make sure your white base coat is really, really good, because otherwise you'll have, they look like shadows. It's just terrible. Don't let that happen. So I'm just gonna take my epoxy here. I'm just dipping my finger in. And you're gonna put the thinnest possible coat. I'm just rubbing and working this. Work under a light so you can see. All the shiny spots is where the glitter's gonna stick. And you can see I'm barely putting any on here. It does not take much. If you use too much, your glitter's gonna lay down in the epoxy, and it looks totally different. It won't look right. It won't sparkle as much. It looks more like a flat metallic that way. Not even a pretty flat metallic. It's not a good look. So I don't know if the light catches this in the video. But you're just gonna keep smearing until everything is shiny and looks wet. Yeah, I mixed up way too much epoxy. I could probably do 4 or 5 cups with the amount that I mixed right here. I'm gonna take this glove off so I can show you. Let me see if the light catches this. So you see the shine there under my light? Just make sure every spot is shiny and smooth. You don't want it lumpy. You can look at this cup. I hardly used any epoxy. You don't want much. So I'm gonna move that out of the way. I've just got some, this is just parchment paper like you bake on. Open my glitter. Open the other side here. You will tend to have a lot of excess glitter with this one, so you really want something down to catch these. You see how that's already sticking. And this one isn't perfect, but I'm going to go back over it later anyhow. Don't mind me. You know, in hindsight, I really should have painted this cup a seafoam green to start with. The one thing I really like about this over like the Loctite method, the Loctite for me, it gets really gummy, it doesn't spray even, and it's really hard to strip if the cup doesn't come out the way I want it, and I don't want that. You know, I can strip epoxy, I can strip Mod Podge, I can strip paint off a cup. Loctite does not like to come off. I'm just going to take and start sprinkling with my sheet here. You could obviously do this with a 2-color ombre or whatever, but this customer just wants a single pale seafoam green. Any spots like that where there might be a little less glitter, I just sprinkle it back on. I'm going to have glitter all over my hands for days. I'm going to regret this. And all I'm going to do is hang this up here on my pegboard for an hour or two. And then I'm going to hit it with a sealer. I don't know if that's 100% necessary. A little piece of sawdust in my glitter there. But I always hit it with the sealer anyhow, just because I really hate when my glitter migrates. And now you see why I use the parchment paper. It slides right back off. The glitter doesn't stick to it. I tried wax paper. For some reason it wants to stick to wax. There's too much static on regular paper. So I've been sticking with the wax paper. What did I do with my white? I'm going to grab my white glitter and do the next. Okay, sorry guys, my mom stopped by, so I paused the video. Alright, so I'm going to do the same thing with this cup. This is just a 20 ounce that I'm going to do with white glitter. I did 2 coats of white paint on this one because with white it will really show. It's not forgiving. I'm just going to keep smearing this around. It's just a tiny bit. Give me a second and I'm going to show you what happens if your paint job isn't really good on white. Get really good up at the edges because I tend to not miss them, but I tend not to notice if the top rim isn't sticky enough to really hold my glitter. And the same with the bottom. This one here, this epoxy was a mess anyhow, and you can kind of see how much it's already yellowed. I didn't like this epoxy. If your paint job isn't great, you can see almost like shadows under the glitter. See, this epoxy went rogue on me, and it just doesn't look good. So you want to make sure if you're doing white that your base coat is really, really good. Set that epoxy aside, and now I'm going to take my white glitter and just dump it on. I know the white is going to be harder to see on the camera, but that's the cup I need to do right now. So
Another bottle of wine?